All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting of January 22nd, 2025. First on the agenda is Centennial Golf Townhomes, 185 Simpson Road. Mike
I have no comments. It's on for resolution.
and Rich
Offer resolution for a seeker negative declaration at this time.
and Pat.
What Rich said, you have the resolution before you. It's for the negative declaration.
And Pat, just prior to us voting, because I like to vote individually on this, can you just explain to the board exactly what they're voting for with the
So this is when this application started, your board was designated lead agency for this project to deal with the seeker review. You spent a considerable amount of time deciding how best to evaluate the consequences of this project. You directed us to direct the applicant to submit supplemental studies dealing with various aspects of the project, traffic and sewer and water and so forth. And as you know, as a result of those studies, the plan had evolved and mitigation measures were put in place to deal with their project. At some point during that process, your board determined that level of analysis was sufficient. You did not require the applicant to prepare a full environmental impact statement. They did the assessment separately and independently, which caused your board to feel comfortable that all of the adverse impacts were being properly mitigated, including the utility infrastructure issues that we spent many, many months dealing with the applicant. So several months ago, you directed us to prepare the negative declaration. That's the document you have before you this evening. This allows the applicant to pursue DEP approvals and some of the agency approvals. It is not an approval of the project in any way. It's simply dictating that you've completed the seeker review and there are no significant adverse impacts associated with the project.
Great, that's exactly, thank you for that, it was very clear. Okay, with that, I'd like to do a roll call vote. Please let us know if you're in favor or not of the project. Nick?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Bob?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Anthony?
Aye.
And I also am aye, so I support it.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would just ask if you would make the motion and then second, just so we
Yeah,
have the record.
Ray's gonna do it.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion of the resolution of the Planning Board of Town of Carmel, number 25-01, January 22nd, 2025, tax map number 55.14-1-35, 26-321, 26-322, 26-323, and 26-324, Centennial Golf Course Townhomes, seeker determination of significance, negative declaration.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your due diligence on this, by the way. You guys persevered. It was a nice bunch of work, and I think the board did an outstanding job.
Thank you.
Thank
I don't know
you.
if you can still say this, but Happy New Year.
Next on the agenda is Old Forge Estates, Baldwin Place Road. Mike, I don't believe you had any comments.
I did
This is
not.
on
It's
for
on for the
resol-
preliminary cluster.
And Rich?
It's on for resolution.
And Pat?
And as you know, this is a project that's been around the block several times. It had expired. This current round is reapproving that same plan that you saw, the cluster townhome development on the property. No changes to the project at all. And you have the secret negative declaration in this case and the preliminary cluster subdivision approval before you. Two resolutions.
Someone make a motion to adopt this.
I'll make a motion to two resolutions. First is the seeker negative declaration, the resolution of the Planning Board of the Town of Carmel, number 25-08, January 22, 2025, tax map number 75.15-1-19-40, Old Forge Estates, seeker determination of significance negative declaration.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And then, second resolution, amended preliminary subdivision approval resolution of the Planning Board of the Town of Carmel, number 25-09, January 22, 2025, tax map number 75.15-1-19-40, Old Forge Estates.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda, Bunny subdivision, 103 Pigott Road, for a sketch plan of 2 lots. Mike, I believe you had some comments?
I do. The applicant proposes to divide a 1.89 acre parcel into 2 non-conforming lots on McLaughlin Drive and Pigott Road. In Mahopac, several variances are required from the ZBA. Lot area, lot width, front yard for lot 1, and lot area and lot width for lot 2.
Thank you. Rich?
As Mike mentions, it's a 1.89 acre parcel being developed into 2 lots about equal in size. General comments of the standard you need, New York State DEC, Public Works from Putnam County, DEP, Town of Carmel Highway, Environmental Board, Mahopac, Carmel, and Fire Departments. Am I looking at the right one? Yeah, McLaughlin, sorry. You'll need a stormwater pollution prevention plan, all those standard things that are out there, but they will also then need to meet preliminary plat approval. So right now, they're asking for the approval of having this subdivision be a non-conforming, as Mike mentioned.
Thanks, Rich and Pat.
And just to be clear, significantly non-conforming. So this was part of a subdivision that was done in the 50s when the zoning was different on this area. And as I'm sure Paul will show you, that most of the lots in the neighborhood are about an acre in size or a little less, actually. So they are taking this, what was, I think at the time, a double-sized lot, and proposing to subdivide it to create 2 lots similar in size to the neighborhood. However, they're about an acre in an area that requires 3-acre lots, so substantially undersized lots. Mike indicated it's also lot width requirements that they would not meet on the property. What would be useful, Paul, if you could provide a quantitative assessment of how many lots are undersized, so we really get a better understanding of the characteristics of the lot. We're at a point, Mr. Chairman, as you know, where the town's poised to adopt potentially a new comprehensive plan that may or may not affect the zoning in this area. So if, and I'm not sure, Mike, where we are in this area, if they're changing the zoning here, but if this is an area where the zoning would reflect those existing conditions, maybe it's better to tap the brakes and wait for the zoning to be amended rather than go to the zoning board and ask for a giant variance for these lots. So plugging into where the comp plan is going would be useful for a project like this.
Either way, it won't be under an acre.
Yeah,
So-
Right.
but it may be less
Agreed.
massively non-conforming than it is today. So that's an image that, Paul, if you could quantify that so we know the actual size of all those
Can you
lots.
explain that, please, Paul?
Yes, this is McLaughlin Acres, and basically, this is Croton Falls Road that loops up through here, and you come up McLaughlin Acres, and you've got all your subdivision lots, and it continues. The original subdivision was done in I think it was like 1955. The McLaughlins actually, who did the subdivision, maintained ownership of what is shown here as this lot. And the Buniers actually at the time owned this lot, which was north of McLaughlin's. They had worked out a deal to purchase this particular lot when the McLaughlins wanted to move out of the area. And as I'm showing on these lot sizes, basically everything around us was 0.65, 0.61, 0.62, 0.71, 0.58. That's 109, that's 0.87. So in terms of the fabric of the original subdivision, and which is another interesting thing, is when McLaughlin sold it to the Buniers, in their deed, which doesn't really hold much weight relative to what's going on today, in their deed, the assumption was made that this lot was going to get subdivided, because they talk about you can build a second house, but it's got to be X number of feet away from the property line. So there was a time where there was an agreement that, yeah, you're buying the lot and we know you're going to subdivide it, but that second house has to be so many feet back from the road. Bunya's purchased the lot, had a young family, and you kind of get derailed as you're taking care of your family from being able to go ahead with your original plans were. So all these years later, he'd like to come back and subdivide his lot at this point in time. And subdividing it actually fits within the fabric of the community. It's not undersized relative to the lots around it. It actually is bigger on average than the lots in the subdivision.
The problem is you don't have an actual lot, 2 lots.
Correct.
So if it was already 2 lots and they were just merged and they wanted to go back to the 2 lots, they would go to zoning board and ask to return to original lot lines.
So
But
we don't
because
have
they don't
that.
have that, that's why they're here trying to do the subdivision.
And this is an example of the jeopardy of waiting to do what you want to do. The zoning changed, and now they have a major nonconformity.
What's this total acreage on that one, on the combined lot?
The existing lot is 1.89. And the lots around it are 0.65, 0.61, 0.62. So when you split this in half, you're at 0.9.
Acre?
Yeah, you're a little under an acre with this. These are basically 2/3 of an acre.
Paul, are you going to get the separation you need for septic and water?
Yes, actually.
With all the lots around you, the smaller ones?
Yes, I wouldn't be, when somebody brings me a project like this, the first thing I look at is what's going on with wells, what's going on with septics, what's going on with drainage. Will it work? Is there area, are there provisions that will make your septic and well fit in and not jeopardize health, safety, and welfare? So we did that first, and that enabled us to move forward.
So, Mr. Chairman, what I would emphasize is, I'm sure Paul did that exercise. It's not reflected on the plan. So we need to see that information on the plan so we can be assured that, in fact, that is the case. One other minor comment with respect to this, the common lot line that goes through the middle has a dog leg in the middle of it, and we like nice straight lot lines. You're not compliant. It doesn't, I don't know why there's a dog leg. If it was straight, you still need variances. It doesn't change much. So again,
No,
just
we can,
our
yeah.
preference is nice straight lot lines.
I read this today, and then I took a drive out there. I think what I struggled with is Mike's first sentence, which I happen to agree with. Applicant proposes to divide 1.8 acre parcel into 2 non-conforming lots. So we have, the board here has something in front of them that's legal in today's zoning code.
Yes.
And you're asking us to make a legal lot into 2 non-conforming lots. Pat mentioned it also, is this application better off to wait to the zoning board? I have a hard time sending this off to the zoning board with high praise when we're going from legal to non-conforming, and a large, as compared to saying, hey, if, and we have to find this out, and if the zoning code changes to 1 acre, now you're talking about very slim
Slightly
variance.
Non-conforming.
Very slight non-conforming. And then the question for Pat also too is, are we better having, if it goes to 1 acre zoning, are we better off having 1 conforming piece of property and then 0.9 as a non-conforming piece of property? So I personally have some questions on this yet. I do believe it fits. I was out there today, but it might fit the area, it might fit the neighborhood, but it doesn't fit our zoning code right now.
I understand that relative in the sense that this is inside an already developed community. So it's already worked out that you're going to have lots X square footage and size, as opposed to this is a lot that's out in the middle of, like one of these lots down here, where they're just a big chunk of land. They're just a pre-existing lot that's been around forever. It's not part of a subdivision. And if you take something like that and say, hey, I want to make non-conforming lots out of it, well, no, that's out of character for that area and how that lot was created. This lot, being in a subdivision, to me, it belongs.
So
So,
I'll just offer, I'm sorry to interrupt, Paul. So that subdivision was created in 1955. So the rules and regulations relating to subdivisions were very different then. If this was a subdivision that was created 5 years ago, Paul's argument rings true. The fact that it was done well before seeker, well before stormwater regulations, well before well setback regulations, it was a different time in 1955. So relying on the people in 1955 were looking at things the way we look at them today, they just weren't. So that's why you got to prove it, Paul. So I have no doubt you went through that exercise, but the plans have to demonstrate that these are developable lots, that they meet all the current regulations, separate and apart from the zoning provisions, which we know they don't comply with.
I'd like to hear from the board on this project also.
It would seem to me that the fastest way through the zoning, or one possible fast way through the zoning issue, is to find out what the new code says about this area. Because if it's going down a 1 acre zoning, that kind of solves a lot of concerns. Do you have a handle on that?
I've got no idea what the timeline is.
It's a good question. The planning board submitted our review quite a while ago.
We can certainly research that, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
I actually have one question. In terms of doing the zoning, revamping the zoning, would the town be interested in looking at these type of conditions where you have a developed subdivision and you've got somebody who's got a lot that didn't get broken in half but fits that community and would work, whether it's got town water, town sewer, or in this case, it's going to be individual septic and individual well. If it's going to fit the fabric of what's around you, you're not hurting anybody in terms of their, what they've got invested in their land.
There is nothing in the new code that addresses that.
Okay? To me, I think that's something that should be thought about and considered.
Yeah, I
So,
don't
Paul-
necessarily disagree.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I'm good, I'm sorry, Rich.
So there's an existing house there now?
Yes,
How many bedrooms?
4 bedrooms.
And you're going to tell me you can get another 4-bedroom house next door, or is it going to be a 2-bedroom?
Could be a 3-bedroom. I don't, until we actually run the perk tests with the health department.
Right.
And I have witness test results, I can't tell you.
So can we?
I can tell you that the soil perks.
Can we help out the applicant and look into what the zoning is going to be? It's a no-brainer, or I think it's a much more obvious way for us to go forward.
So
And with a
administratively-
stronger recommendation to the zoning board?
Administratively, Mr. Chairman, you still have to deal with seeker, so you can designate lead agency, you can start that process. That was the best Paul was getting tonight anyway.
Yeah.
Was starting that process, so you can still do that.
Yeah.
You can do that research, and if Paul could provide us with more detail about the developability of the second lot, which seems apparent at face value, but proof's in the pudding, right? We have to see the documentation.
The planning board's been trying to do more things in parallel to try to speed up the process. I do agree with Pat on this, that this whole review tonight was to declare lead agency. That's what we're going to do.
No, I understand.
So I think, as Pat just mentioned, we can do that, and then in parallel to that, let the applicant and yourself proceed with our suggestions and recommendations that we gave you tonight, so you don't lose any time.
That's fine.
And if you call me tomorrow morning, I'll tell you what the zoning's going to be. It's simple. I have the map, I
Okay.
don't have it in my head.
Is there any other comments from the board before we move this along? Rich?
Paul, on the drawing before that you have, that you provided to us for review, it's another tax map, or is that the other one? You have two.
One's
You
a
have,
ta-
you have a
one's a tax
proposed
map.
one, and you have an existing. Is this the existing?
This is existing.
Okay, is there still 2 dotted lines going through one of the lots?
Yeah,
What is, that's the lines that Pat was talking about, that show it as a
No.
weird?
any full lots there.
something happened somewhere between 55 and 57. Because there's 2 file maps. And without getting into doing title searches and everything, one subdivision shows these dashed lines as if those were previously approved lots. But somewhere along the line, they got adjusted. So somewhere between 55 and, I think it's 57. Something was done to change whatever the lot lines were going to be. I'll give you copies of what those file maps are.
Please do, Paul, because something changed is scary. Like, how did it change? Was it done legally? That's what we need to verify. So if you have documentation, Paul, just pass it along.
Yeah, I'll give you those maps.
Could you go back to the first page that you had, please?
Very, very first page?
You just showing the detail of the subdivision of the one lot. Okay. So which is the existing house, the top of
This is the existing house. There are wells up here in the
the
front.
house there? Where's the septic?
That's their septic in the back. And basically, everything's cookie cutter where you have well, house, septic, well, house, septic. You would have well, house, septic. You have well, house, septic. You've got drainage that runs down along the front of the, along the road.
How much of a grade is there to the property and the slope
It's under 10%, somewhere around 10%
going
downhill.
from front to back?
Yes.
Right, that's DEP property on the other side, and it
No.
goes across, no? Okay.
No, this is actually privately owned.
Okay.
Now we're formerly the County Playhouse, formerly Fossati.
And then you get to DEP
Yes.
property and then Crow.
Yes.
This is the one that they wanted to do the drug rehab center at a couple years ago. That's the property between,
That's the other property.
in between.
I think, as the chairman said, I think we can move this along, declaring lead agency, give you a little bit of time to do a little bit more work, and then we could then see what's going on with the new town, with the new code proposal. It's hard for this board to take a conforming lot, especially the way we preach to make everything conforming, and go the other way. That doesn't mean the door is shut, but I think we got to start doing some research, and we got to start doing some digging into this. And we'll see where it goes.
You want to make a motion to declare lead agency?
Yeah, if nobody else has.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to declare the planning board as lead agency.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I think our conversation was helpful to you, Paul, in the sense that you can do things now in parallel, right?
Yes.
Because you can do your homework and give the board what they need.
Yeah, I'll provide the additional information. We'll get, once the snow melts, I can get testing done with the health department.
Say you can start your perk test.
Yeah, we can do that witness now, just to verify that all that works for you.
You will be in the LDR, which is a 3-acre zone.
So,
So we're not helping you.
no.
Next on the agenda is Hasbrook and Cant subdivision, 241 Washington Road for a sketch plan. Mike, I believe you had some comments?
I do, but I can't get out of what I'm in. Hold on.
All right, we can start with Rich.
Sorry.
You want to start with Rich, Mike?
Please.
I got it. So this is a project that's located on Washington Road. It's a 28.3 acre parcel being developed into an 11.3 and 17 acre parcel, a little more conforming than the prior one. General comments, all the standard referrals to the DEC, Putnam County, DEP, Carmel Highway, Environmental Board, Mahopac, and Carmel Fire Departments. Stormwater pollution prevention plan will be needed. You might have to do one with the DEP, depending on how much area is disturbed. In both these applications, the one prior and this, there is contains information, no areas are proposed to be reserved for open space. And should public improvements, standard fare, standard stuff, it needs to just move forward with more detail to go forward.
Thank you. Pat, you have some comments on this?
Sure. So as Rich indicated, Paul submitted a very preliminary plan for this. I think he's trying to take your temperature with respect to this, and it's necessary for this application. So as Rich indicated, it's a very large lot. More than half of it is severely environmentally constrained. There's a big old wetland on the property. There's a water course on the property. So most of that property is unusable. There's easements on the property. The intention, there's an existing home in the front with a horse facility, a stable, or some sort of horse-related thing. I think the owner of the property has a buddy who wants to build a similar thing on their big property. Paul has presented a plan where they would subdivide the property across the middle of it, create a landlocked parcel in the rear, and build a single-family home with a paddock and a stable facility. So number one, zoning non-compliant, landlocked parcel, how do we access it? Do we do 280 open development? There's a mechanical issue of how we do, what method we use to address that landlocked non-conforming parcel. So that has to be sorted out. The environmental characteristics of the site are significant. So Paul, give us a full environmental assessment form with this, if you would.
Okay.
We do need to have a better understanding of the wetlands on the property. I don't know if you're aware of this, but as of January 1st, 2025, this year, the DEC has changed their wetland law substantially. So now, it used to be that there was a state wetland map and 12.4 acres, the state dealt with those. All of that's gone away. There is no state mapping of wetlands anymore, and there is no longer a 12.5 minimum area. For every wetland project, every watercourse project, you have to reach out to the DEC now to get a jurisdictional determination. And the DEC has 90 days to say, we're gonna regulate this wetland, or you can regulate this wetland. This is a massive change, and every puddle in New York State now has to go through Albany before you can make a decision with respect to local wetlands. It's a major change. The DEC hired 3 people to deal with this for the entire state of New York, and they have added to their workload 10,000%. Virtually everything now goes to the DEC. So massive change. And this is going to be one. Now you have to go through this process. It's automated on the DEC website. You file your determination request, and they come back to you within 90 days. So I'm guessing this backlog is going to add 90 days to every project like this before you can even make a decision on how it moves forward. So significant issue. So anyway, we're all going to deal with that. But anyway, because it's, give us a long environmental assessment form with this, Paul. And again, very preliminary in terms of what they gave us with respect to that. So improvements, what would they build in the back lot? You got to kind of show us what's going on back there.
Thanks, Pat. And Mike?
The applicant proposes to divide a 28.316 acre parcel on Washington Road in Carmel. What's the purpose of the subdivision? There is no proposed house shown on Lot 2. Will Lot 1 or Lot 2 be returning for site plan approval for a private stable or agricultural operation? I think that's what the plan is. There's a fenced-in level riding ring on the property, but no approval for horses. Open development approvals required from the town board for the proposal, as Lot 2 does not have frontage on a town, county, or state road, and the easements need to get submitted to Joe Charbonneau for review.
Thanks, Mike. Paul, before I turn it over to the board, why don't you take us through the project, please?
Okay. Basically, we had the New York State DEC actually flag the wetland. So the wetland flagging that's shown here in blue was flagged by the DEC. I will be submitting that form to have them be able to go through their process again. This green line here is the 100-foot buffer around their wetland that they flagged, and then along 100 feet off the stream, which would be town regulated. So that pretty much just left us with this area to work with as basically being usable land, which would be about 7 acres here, and it's basically 8 acres there. We looked at doing conventional subdivision where you come down, get your frontage on the street, have your lot depth and lot width and all that sort of stuff, and ultimately we couldn't get a configuration really that worked, that left the two, the existing owner and the proposed buyer with basically usable area. And that's how we ended up with this configuration to create the landlocked lot, because that gives you a chunk of land here for this person, that gives the existing owners their chunk of land here, and you provide the access easement and driveway along the property line on the east side. So we were just looking to maximize what it is you end up with. The other concern was they didn't want to end up with, where you had a conventional subdivision lot coming in where 15 years from now, property owner passes away. somebody inherits the lot, and now they want to build 3 houses on it by putting in a, town-regulated road or something to that effect. So we wanted to eliminate that possibility. Granted, it could be done through deeds and that sort of thing, but it was just easier to provide buildable area, horse farms, both lots. And then there would be individual site plans that come back to show house, what's going on with the barn, where they're going to be located, and all that sort of good stuff.
There's one house on the property now?
Yes, it's right up here, right on the street. This is the old Flynn house.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
old house.
And did you mention there's going to be another house? Or
It would be back on this lot.
So it'll be a house and maybe a barn and?
Yes,
You have to
because
show
they're
that.
going to use it for horses. They're going to have horses on the property.
It will be a conditional use that you have to approve. There's separate regulations related to the horse facility. We've been through that.
But you have to show a house on this plat,
We
just
can-
to show
we'll add that.
compliance, just to show compliance. You can
Okay.
move it, it's not set in stone, but I do need to show a house in the septic.
Okay,
Did you access it?
I'll do that.
You're gonna actually have to show, Paul, how they're not gonna cross over into those wetlands with the horses.
I think they can.
Well-
Agricultural uses are allowed in
If
the
it's an
wetlands.
So right now you have, a huge tract of wetlands that are on the other side of the green.
So you
top
would
part
want-
of the drawing.
You would want some restrictions.
I would think there would be, but Mike's saying there might be an agricultural exemption for it.
I would,
Again,
down the road, they would want to go the agricultural route. So I think the board would then want to preempt to allow, make sure that you don't encroach within the wetlands.
So again, Paul,
Or
I'm
the
just gonna
buffer.
Which is fine.
emphasize the new wetland rules give the DEC a lot of discretion. So they are gonna be the ones telling you what you can and can't do in that area, presumably.
and I cut you off, Paul. You were answering somebody else's question, so I do apologize, Board.
I forgot what it was now.
How are you going to access the second house?
Oh, there's an existing 48-inch culvert down here that's been used for access onto the property forever. So that's where the common driveway's going to be to come in for this back lot. So you'll come in here and drive through, and the grading is very minimal.
There's a ravine right by that green line where it turns south or straight down. It's a ravine that you couldn't get through there.
And actually, there's a beaver dam here, which the Hasbroucks are going to contact the DEC about.
And that blue behind the existing homes
That's,
stream
this is the actual wetland line,
and coming down?
and then that's the stream.
Okay.
That's the stream in here. This is your actual flagged wetland area.
So one question I have is, if you can just go back and explain, you made a comment that by doing it this way, you foreclose the possibility of somebody in the future putting multiple houses on the property. How does this design do that, accomplish that?
Because it's a landlocked, it would be through 280A where you've got a landlocked lot. So you wouldn't be able to re-subdivide it because you don't have the ability to have in essence, a town road.
You can't subdivide it to begin with.
It requires approval from the town board for the open development. So the town board will put conditions on there. The roadway must be, and I'm making up numbers, 15 feet wide. It must be maintained. It must have an agreement for maintenance and blah, blah, blah.
Your point's well taken.
Very well.
He can't do it now. He needs the 280A. In the future, he would get 280A for another lot. if he
I was
wanted
just gonna say that.
Yeah.
You can't do it now, but you can't do it later, but maybe you can do it now, and maybe you can do it later.
Yeah, exactly right. So what I would assume that the town would do is, as they've done in the past, they impose restrictions when they grant 288, to say you can't further subdivide or whatever.
Which we have no problem with.
This is such a beautiful piece of property out there.
But that's part of
It
the
is.
reason they're doing it this way. When I spoke to the owner, he wanted this so he could control what happens in the back. So the
But that
front
only
people
exists
with the
as long-
easement control what happens in the back by not allowing more development on
But
it.
that only exists as long as he exists.
Exactly right.
And as long as economic conditions
Yeah.
stay the
Yeah.
same.
Questions from the board?
So if he feels that strongly, which I'm sure he does, then why doesn't he just do a deed restriction?
You could do it, but then you get into geometries for how the lots get configured that really aren't beneficial. to what it is you want to do on the land? I mean, I can give you some sketches, just so you can see what the difference would be, if you would like that.
I think he's saying that if you put a deed restriction on the lot when you divide it, that it can no further be subdivided. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, with
Yeah, he's
this,
not-
yes. Oh,
He's
that
not
would be
saying,
fine.
show us how you can comply.
Yeah.
He's saying, put a condition on the deed that says you can no further, you can't
That-
divide it.
Right, I apologize, that's what I meant.
That's fine. No issue there.
Yeah, I mean, then we wouldn't have the concern of, well, we know what we have now, but we don't know what we have in the future.
Right.
That would be fine.
And Bob, to the point you just raised, theoretically, you could make the town a party to that deed restriction, so it's not just two private properties removing it.
Right.
We would have something to say about removing that.
I think it's a great,
I mean, if you
great
haven't seen that
solution.
property, you really need to look at it. It's just a gorgeous piece of property.
It is. It's
I
fabulous.
hate to see that changed. All right, look, there's a lot of comments I think you need to work on, Paul, with the team. And
Yes.
you know, and take another crank at this. I think Paeprer has some very good environmental points.
Right, so you reach out to the DEC next?
Yes.
You're gonna have to get a.
Yeah, I have to fill that form out and
That's
send it in.
step one, and
Yeah.
you're on hold until.
Paul, thanks.
Okay.
Good explanation. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, if this whole engineer thing doesn't work out for you, you could be a trial lawyer. He was dancing pretty well. 2 cases in a row, so.
Next on the agenda is Platinum Propane, 1035 Route 6 site plan. Mike?
Yeah, they're really here to explain that they went to the DOT for their access, ingress and egress, and they were told they could only make a right turn out. They put it on the plat. I guess they're here to show you the change.
Thank you, Rich.
Exactly what Mike said. They're here just to explain what happened after they met with the DOT. There were some comments in the past, but most of them, I think, have been addressed, but they need to just move forward with addressing them and move forward. I had written in there that it was granting an extension. They're not at that point right now. They have already received that, so I apologize for my memo.
And Pat?
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman. It's the change to the plan that I think Adam can describe for you this evening.
Adam, you want to take us through it, please?
Yeah, it's really pretty negligible, and I think we covered the main point of it when we were here for the 6-month extension back in November. At that point, and to this day, the primary change is that DOT determined that we should only have a right out, so you can't make a left on the way out. That's the main substantive change. Since then, there were a couple minor tweaks to the geometry of the driveway. That's essentially it. We did show a bit of additional grading, which is really just to eliminate part of a stone wall that's along the frontage to improve the sight distance. That's essentially that. The reason we're here tonight, because again, we were before you in November for the 6-month extension, is to point out that DOT, after a lengthy review, is now satisfied with the design. We submitted an email to that effect. And essentially, we just want to come back and confirm that as we meet the remaining conditions of the approval, that these subtle changes to the site plan are acceptable to the board. If there's anything that the board needs to do in terms of the resolution or anything else, or if, as we meet those other conditions, the site plans can be signed, and that's really all we're looking to do tonight.
Is any resolution needed?
No.
Because of the right turn only?
No, none of the conditions would change. What changes is the plan itself. So we would need the updated plan. Adam, is that a directed right turn only curb cut, or is it a 90-degree curb cut that you can only make a right turn?
You can only make a right turn. There's a median that's in place that directs you to the right, and there'll be signage.
Signage never
looks
works,
directed.
but the direction works.
The median will force you to the right. Yes.
Is the note on there about right turn only?
Yep, and we show a sign here, that'll be where's our sign table? No left turns, that's all, again, the design of which has all been approved at this point by DOT. The email that you were, that was submitted basically just indicates the design is in good shape. We have to move to the stage 3 of the application, which is essentially just clerical. You submit things like contractor insurance and things like that, but they're now satisfied with the design. And all of that is reflected in the plan that you're looking at now.
Adam, can you make a left turn into this property?
You
You're
can
coming-
make a left turn into it, but you can only make a right turn out of it.
And wasn't there a restriction on turning onto Nicole Way, like to make, so people are, how is that gonna be enforceable?
I was just gonna ask that.
Well, to be clear, DOT did not put that restriction on. When we were last here for our extension, I think there was a concern among the board that could be, since we're making the right turn out, are they gonna go into Nicole Way and use that as a turnaround?
Yeah, I remember that.
So it's codified in the site plan in that we've added a note. We wanted to just address that out of the gate, that the applicant's vehicles will not be permitted to make the right turn on to Nicole Way in order to turn around to then make the left back on 6. It's added in a note. Certainly, if Mike's office got complaints that Platinum Propane's trucks are turning around on Nicole Way, then that it would be enforceable in that
Can you
way,
write
because it
it-
is codified in the site plan.
Can you write it both ways, that they can't make a right on Sheer Hill Road and come down Nicole Way and make a left onto 6?
Sure.
Just so it's the double catch.
Sure.
It's not a one-way road.
Meaning they can't go down Nicole Way, make the
Nope.
left.
No.
Go down to Sheer Hill,
And
make a
then
right
come
on Sheer
back.
Hill,
Yeah.
back Nicole Way, and make a left onto 6.
Okay, sure.
Just to do it both ways.
Trying to avoid all the neighborhood congestion.
And of course, this is all caveated on that if they are servicing a customer on Nicole Way. they can-
Of course.
Yeah.
Delivery is a delivery, that's not the same.
Yeah, they would not be opposed to that. We'll revise that note.
And Adam, I'm still kind of hung up on the left turn in, so is there a double yellow line that remains in place? Because you can't make a left out, so why would you need a break in the double yellow line unless you're allowed to make a left turn in? So if you're coming from the top of your sheet
Yeah.
down, and you want to make a left into the site, you
Uh-huh.
can make that maneuver, right?
You can.
There'll be a break in a double yellow line that allows that to happen, correct?
There would be, yes.
Yeah.
On 6 you're talking.
Yeah,
But is it a raised curb at that triangle in the middle?
It is.
yeah.
Good.
So that
It's
directs you-
mountable, but
Otherwise,
there's a
you might
curve
as
there.
well not do it if it's just
Yeah,
painted.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think the right out is fine, it's the left in that I worry about, and sometimes when it's a directed driveway, that maneuver gets a little funky. And
It'll be a-
sometimes DOT assumes, we never thought you'd make a left turn there, so they keep the double yellow line, which means you can't cross it, it's a double yellow line, it's illegal to cross a double yellow line, so.
I can confirm that with DOT,
Please
but
do,
I,
Adam, I want to make sure
Yeah.
we're all on the same page with this.
Like you did at Diamond Point, where they're making a left. You can't make a left off of 6 coming from Somers in.
right.
Coming down the hill, you can make a right,
Yep.
but coming out, you can only make a right.
That was only a right in, I think. There's no out.
There's no, okay.
Yeah, that's only right in. The in and out is on Baldwin Place Road. But yeah, your point is understood, yeah.
And again, this is all DOT, we're not going to supersede DOT in any way, so let's just clarify that.
So again, assuming the board finds the changes acceptable, we'll continue to go through the additional, or the remaining conditions, which I think are down to essentially posting the bond and paying the fee. And it'll be safe for us to assume that the site plans can be signed at that time.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's fair.
Just double check, I don't know if I had some comments that weren't addressed from the last time, but just confirm that with Rose.
We'll
to
take a
get
look.
you this, so, but otherwise, yeah, sorry.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Adam, are you doing MK Realty? Yeah. Next on the agenda is MK Realty, Route 6 and Old Route 6, reapproval of final site plan. I don't believe there's any comments from Mike.
Well, it's the same thing as always, why?
Yeah.
And last time, and I don't mean to throw words at people, but last time, that was the last time, I promise. And now we went for another extension, and now we're at another re-grant. This has been going on for almost 20 years, or 18 years or something like that, I believe, isn't it, 15?
And even last month, a different application, we asked the same thing, too. It was like, let's make it part of the record. We're not
It's a long
keep
time, so.
doing this. So, Adam, a few people might not be familiar with this. You want to take us through the history of this?
Yeah, so this was originally approved in '06. The applicant, continues to market the site, is certainly not looking to come back and look for regrants and extensions during that time, but continues to market the site, hasn't been able to sell it to this point, has had a few nibbles, hasn't been able to close a deal on it. So we have been back. He has had us keep up with all of the outside permitting, which outside of the town of Carmel, the site plan, all outside agency approvals are good for at least another year. So that, I think that's something to consider. The other thing that we want to point out is, and as you can see from the site plan, it's a very generic site plan. So it's almost inevitable that when this is sold and a user comes in, that they will be back here for an amended site plan. Given that, the zoning is not yet changed, all of the outside agency approvals are still good for a year plus in most cases, and the fact that, this is almost certainly not going to get built based on this site plan, and there will be an amended site plan for a specific user when that time comes, we would ask for the re-grant. Certainly, it'd be understandable, if the new zoning was in place and you wanted another look at it based on new zoning criteria. But given that, we're status quo to this point and all of our other permits are current for a while yet to go, we would ask for the additional re-grant.
Just one comment to Adam. March 14th is your ECB permit of this year.
We're going to be applying to that, and that has been set up so that it runs concurrent with this approval.
Right, so just, all the other things he said is correct. It's just, the closest one is March 14th. And the bond probably needs to be increased based on current, so it was 06 to now, and that's a 73% increase. So that's in the memo that I provided to the board, and you can get from Rose.
Okay.
So I think Adams explained it well. So are we saying that this applicant from 2006 came forward today? It would comply, but we wouldn't have anything else that we would need to do to it? I worry about almost a 20-year applicant.
Right, nothing's changed. There are no new rules or regulations which would affect the layout or configuration of the site plan that you approved in '06. So in that sense, there's no change.
But there might be at the next turn. Be ready, because we're changing the code, so I don't know how it's going to affect this property.
It could also change depending on the potential buyer, correct?
Correct, yeah. And again, we've got essentially a square that's on the site plan as a proposed building. When, X buyer comes in, the likelihood that this exact footprint and this exact use and this exact site configuration is going to be exactly what they need and want is minimal. So again, it's much more likely than not that potential buyer would be in for amended site plan anyway.
Yeah, I just don't want to wait another 20 years for it.
Neither does the applicant, for sure.
We have just recently granted final extensions and final reapprovals.
Yeah, so it's interesting. You can say last one, and that's it. But Adam very frankly said, we're probably going to change this. So if this expired, what's the damage? He's changing it anyway.
Right.
Also, we may change it on him, the rules on him anyway. So he's got to come back for amended site plan anyway, because we may change the rules. So I get you want to preserve a right that you have right now, but
There is value to the applicant.
Yeah, sure.
in the marketing of the site, that they have a current site plan approval.
right, he probably can borrow money because he has site plan approval, that sort of thing. So understandable.
Yeah, there is value to that approval being continued. There isn't really much of any risk to the town. I don't want to speak for the town, but to allow it to, a zoning compliant, approved project to remain current, seems reasonable.
I'm just wondering if we examine, if we note this, that we examine the new zoning code, if we grant the extension and look at it compared to the new zoning code, if we might have a different view then with some support. I'm struggling, I want to say no, but I don't really have the support in my back to support me in my decision, but I think in the new zoning code, we might say, look, this just doesn't comply, and would give us some, I'm not looking to turn it down, but it's almost 20 years old.
Right.
And
When does this expire?
it's 1 year,
What's the date that this expires? Sometime in the next few weeks.
Okay,
sometime when?
the next few weeks.
I think I have it here.
There are some,
We're actually, it It expires March 11th, so we have a little over a month,
So
month and a half.
what, a thought, Mr. Chairman, is, as you know, we're going through the comprehensive plan right now,
Right.
again, to provide you and the town board with guidance with respect to that. Prior to your next meeting, we may have completed some of that work and can say, all the rules are changing here, so throw this in the garbage, or not. It's completely consistent with the future vision. That may help you, just to the point you were making before. So maybe if we give us a couple weeks and let us do some of that work, Adam, it might help you, or it may hurt you, and give you at least the guidance you might need to go in one way or the
It would give us, what we've been asking for is the current outlook of
Yeah.
that property use. And then, like Pat said, we could say, yeah, it fits perfectly, or
The
it doesn't
one-
fit at all.
The one complicating factor is that we also need to re-up the wetland approval, which has been essentially tied to the timeline of the approved site plan, and I think that does expire, and the timing of that meeting might be a complicating factor.
Well, you have until March
Yeah.
14th, right? So we have another meeting in 2 weeks.
Yeah, as long as a meeting isn't canceled, or we don't have a quorum, or something like that, we could probably sneak it in. Obviously, the preference would be to get a re-grant tonight, and then certainly, it would be more than reasonable to do that analysis when, if and when we come back for an extension. But if that's the board's preference, then,
And Adam, just to be clear, as long as you've made the request within the timeframe, if we don't have a meeting because we don't have a quorum, we can retroactively grant the approval.
Right.
We don't penalize you because we missed
I was
it.
just gonna
does
say
the
that.
ECB work the same way with the wetland permits? That's where I see the
Can I
the
offer
wrinkle.
another path, which would be provide a very limited time extension?
Yeah, you could,
And
90 days or something.
90
like that.
days, whatever. And that gets you over the hump of what you need, but you'll have to deal with the, come back in and deal with the new zoning code appropriately.
Yeah, 6 of one, half a dozen, whatever your
Yeah.
choice. I think.
Instead
Just
of
seems
a
simple.
final approval,
Yep.
we can revisit again in 90 days.
And it doesn't work the same way for ECB, you're gonna have to get that.
And I think it takes a little pressure off the ECB, it takes a little pressure off your review or our review of
Yeah.
the zoning code changes. And we
Exactly.
can do our due diligence a little bit more thoroughly.
So we would go seek the re-grant of the wetland permit as though we were going forward with the
Yeah.
site plan, but
Well, you wanna stay
revisit
on top of
you
that, I
all
would assume.
in
Come back
90
90
days or
days.
whatever it might be. Okay.
The alternative, this would be normally a 180-day extension?
No, this is a year.
1 year.
Yeah, and this is also a re-grant, this isn't an extension, so as long as it's within the board's power to offer an additional extension, I'm just asking the question.
You get a whole new rack of extensions on the re-grant, it starts all over.
But we would be due for the re-grant tonight.
But if we do it, it's good for 2 years.
Right, so I'm just confirming that you're able to give an extension after an extension, because my understanding has always been that it's been a re-grant, and then after a year, it's a year extension. But you can give another extension in addition. So you would have to give the re-grant tonight then.
Well, we can give a motion for a re-grant instead of for a year for 90 days.
Right.
And then when the 90 days have come up.
The
we can look at a
re-grant
year.
would be 90 days.
Right.
Okay, I understood.
Right.
It's only good for a year, the re-grant.
No.
No, 90 days.
I'm sorry, the extension, if you get an extension, that's only good for a year, so you're only getting a year and 90 days, where you usually get 2 years, yes, so you're
Which is still plenty of
Give
time.
them a re-grant for whatever period of time it is.
Understood.
And Adam, last few meetings, we've been trying to, clean up our books, if you will. We've have a lot of reapprovals and re-grants for 10, 15, 20 years, and we just need to tighten these up, so I think this is,
Stick it in the bottom of our shoes.
Well, the other thing I think to consider is what do we do in the event that, the project is not re-granted? We reapply for a site plan approval, presumably seeker's been done, and we go through, we have a public hearing and presumably get approved again. So,
I think it's more relevant if the codes have changed. And that's
exactly.
like I said to you, I said, I want to, but I don't have, we need support to say no. We need support to say yes. In this case, we put 90 days in to give us some support one way or the other. And it could help you, actually.
Yep.
But Adam, some of those things that changed, right? The wetland regulations and the stormwater regulations and, so keeping this going, they're covered under the existing permits. Once it all expires, he's not covered under it anymore. All that changes. So it's not just our code, it's all the other codes around him that have changed.
Excellent point.
Which is substantial.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, there's probably a FEMA floodplain there, or it's right at the edge of it, because that's St. Michael's Brook. And you do have a lovely sewage treatment plant directly behind your facility there. So, that's probably why he's having an issue with it, but who knows, right? I mean, you won't have a blocked toilet, as Mike said, so.
I make a motion to provide a re-grant for 90 days.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good
Thank you.
discussion, thank you.
And just to confirm, it's the 90 days beyond the expiration?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I don't believe there were any minutes distributed. No minutes distributed. Nick, you want to make a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.